I used to think I was the woman he was going to marry. But on the night of my birthday, I accidentally overheard a conversation that changed everything. Chapter 1. The day Chad published his SCI paper as first author, the hallway outside his classroom was packed with people who came just to see him. Anna's really lucky. How did she land a guy like that? Guess fools really do have their blessings. Chad even turned down that girl from the literature department. Maybe Anna does have some tricks up her sleeve. Stop talking, she's right behind us. I stood a short distance away, pretending I hadn't heard a thing, just waiting for Chad to come out. He didn't like me waiting at the door for him. So I always stood here instead. From this spot, I could see him the moment he walked out. The bell rang, and he followed his professor out of the classroom. Cool. Composed. Chad stood in the crowd doing absolutely nothing, yet somehow he outshone everyone. A bold girl tried to ask for his number, but he turned her down immediately. I'd seen this scene so many times. Ever since the day I met him, Chad had always been the kind of boy girls flocked to. Chapter 2. I chased Chad for 3 years, then dated him for another 3. 6 years altogether, 6 years spent loving him far more than he ever loved me. From the very first day I met him in high school, all I ever thought about was how to become the girl Chad would like best. When he got sick, I brought him medicine. When he skipped class, I covered for him. When he was upset, I acted silly just to make him laugh. But Chad never liked me. He liked Chloe, the girl who shone just as brightly as he did. Chloe was smart and beautiful. Whenever the math teacher put a difficult problem on the board, she solved it in less than 2 minutes. Meanwhile, after drawing dozens of auxiliary lines, all I managed to write was solution and nothing else. Chloe doubled over laughing, tugging on Chad's sleeve as she walked ahead. Chad, Anna's your tutoring buddy. Shouldn't you explain it to her? Chad frowned, annoyed. Don't even think about scoring on problems like this. You wouldn't get it even if I explained. Back then, he was the school's star student, the one every teacher adored. Nothing like the half-conscious boy I once carried to the hospital after he got beaten up in an alley 2 years earlier. If you rewound time 3 years, anyone would have thought Chad and Chloe were meant to be together. Chad, who only cared about studying, would join the sports meet he hated just for her. He'd get on stage for a debate competition, something he despised, just to indulge her moods. He even gave up a physics competition that could have earned him an early admission spot, just to take her to the hospital. Everyone said that if Chad and Chloe didn't end up together, they'd stop believing in love altogether. But their story really did fall apart. The night before Chloe went abroad, Chad stood outside her building in the pouring rain, all night. I was the one who eventually dragged him to the hospital. Meanwhile, the girl he waited so painfully for boarded a plane across the ocean without even looking back. After that, Chad hated Chloe with everything in him. And foolish me. I was the one who picked up the pieces. But his friends never liked me. I still remember at his graduation dinner, his closest buddy got drunk and said to my face, "The moment Chloe comes back, you're nothing." Chapter 3. The evening breeze was chilly, and most of the people outside the classroom had already left. Chad. I waved at him. He glanced at me, barely, said a few words to the person beside him, then walked over with a slight frown. I've got things to do later. What is it? For a split second, I wanted to ask him why he never replied to my messages. Why I was the last person to learn his paper got published. Why he, once again, forgot he was supposed to spend my birthday with me tonight. But when the words reached my lips, I swallowed them back and smiled. It's going to rain tonight. I just came to bring you an umbrella. He took it, expression unreadable, and walked away without even looking back. I stared at his retreating figure, hearing my roommate's voice echo in my mind. Chad's great. Too bad he doesn't like you that much. When you're young, one unforgettable glance can feel overwhelming, louder than anything else in your world. Chad was that one glance for me, the boy I looked at just a second longer. I remembered the summer before our first year of high school. A woman holding a child blocked my path and refused to let me leave no matter how I struggled. Suddenly, someone stepped between us, pulling her hands away from me. Sunlight slanted across his figure, tall, steady, like a pine standing in bright light. "I've already called the police," he said. If he'd known that helping me that day would make me stick to him like a little shadow, Chad probably would have thought twice about stepping in. Chapter 4. A little before 10, my phone chimed. It was a message from Chad. "Come out. I'm taking you to celebrate your birthday." I stared at the screen and couldn't help smiling, the gloom from earlier lifting instantly. He hadn't completely forgotten about me, after all. I paid for dinner and waved to my roommates. "I'm heading out to meet my boyfriend. Dinner's on me tonight, eat a bit more, okay?" The place Chad sent me was right across the street. I arrived a full 30 minutes earlier than he expected. Maybe every tiny coincidence had already been written into whatever fate we were heading toward. Coincidence, or inevitability? When I reached the private room, I happened to hear their conversation. His friend asked, "Chloe flew back yesterday. Aren't you going to try again?" Chad went silent for a moment. "She left me first. If anyone should come back, it's her." His friend sighed and continued, "Anna's not good enough for you. If you marry her, none of us are showing up to your wedding." It must have been about a minute. During that minute, I stood outside the door with my eyes closed, praying Chad would say just one word for me. But until laughter filled the room again, I didn't hear him speak a single syllable. I walked back to the lobby, telling myself Chad just wasn't talkative. He never was. Not before, not now. And probably not ever. I kept forcing myself to believe that. But was there really still a future for us? I remembered back in high school, when Chloe dragged Chad into joining the debate club, I quickly signed up too. Chloe wore her usual pretty smile when she teased me. "Anna, didn't you know your nickname is Slow Mo Anna? Slow to speak, slow to run, slow to react." I tilted my head, refusing to accept it. I can list 20 things I love about Chad in 1 minute. Chad, hearing his name, looked up at me, frowning again. 1 minute. 60 seconds. And the boy who won Best Debater in that competition didn't defend me with even one word. Chapter 5. Chad still hadn't shown up. When my phone displayed its final low battery warning, I finally sent him a message. He came out moments later, jacket in hand. Waited long? He took my hand as naturally as breathing, his voice unusually gentle. "Come on. Let's go celebrate my Anna's birthday." Under the warm lights, his eyes looked as beautiful as ever, glimmering with a softness I'd always hoped was meant for me. I had spent years wishing that light would fall on me too. I remembered back in high school, someone once asked Chad what kind of girl he liked. He paused for 3 seconds, then said, "Someone who can fight side by side with me." Because of that one sentence, my grades shot up. I swore I'd get into the same university as him, become the kind of person he'd love. But later, I learned the truth. During those 3 seconds of silence, he wasn't thinking of me. He was looking for Chloe's shadow. Even now, Chad was still the same Chad. His eyes had finally landed on me. But in that gaze, I still couldn't find myself. Maybe he truly never liked me that much. Just as I was about to speak, his phone rang. An unfamiliar number. Chad's pupils tightened, he stared at the screen until the last second before picking up. Coldness. Bitterness. Panic. Hurt. Collapse. All in a call that lasted less than 3 minutes. Yet in those 3 minutes, I saw expressions I hadn't seen from him once in the past 3 years. Chad was always composed in front of everyone. Polished and proper. Except around Chloe. The last time he lost control like this was back when Chloe went abroad 3 years ago. He suddenly turned and bolted toward the exit. "I need to take care of something," Go back to campus first. I wanted to grab him. Tell him my phone was about to die. Tell him my birthday was almost over. But he glanced at me. Just one glance. And I knew. He was telling me not to make a scene. I couldn't help calling out, "Chad." He didn't turn around. He didn't answer. Chapter 6. I didn't see Chad again until 2 days later. He was walking across campus with Chloe, helping her report in. Both of them wore white t-shirts, shoulder to shoulder. Not a couple. But somehow more than a couple. Meanwhile, I still hadn't recovered from the fever I got after being drenched on my birthday night. It was late autumn, yet even with an extra sweater and coat, I still felt cold. It turned out that Chad and we didn't even share the same season anymore. One of Chad's friends somehow got my number and laid out the entire story for me. Chloe had fought with her parents over coming back for the exchange program and got kicked out of her house. Chad stayed with her for 2 whole days. They talked through everything and cleared up every misunderstanding. Her parents had forced her to leave years ago by threatening Chad's future. She didn't leave willingly. And Chad? He'd unlocked the notes on his phone. Every line inside was about Chloe. Before ending the call, his friend even sent me a screenshot and reminded me. The real one is back now. Stop clinging to him. I opened the screenshot. It was Chad's notes. The most recent update was from 2 days ago. Not, "Happy birthday." But, "Even if I'm getting married in the next minute, as long as you coax me a little, the bride will never be anyone but you." Well. Aren't I unlucky? All these years chasing after him. And I still couldn't compare to one glance from someone else. After hanging up, I scrolled through my call log. A whole page of red. All missed calls Chad had declined. He didn't answer a single message from me. Expected. Expected, and painful. That night, I wasn't really waiting for him to turn back. I was waiting for the storm the weather report had promised. Chad tossed me aside without hesitation. And right on cue, the rain followed. Soaking me through. And waking me up. Chapter 7. I ran into Chloe while I was having lunch in the cafeteria. She took one look at me, then marched over in her heels. Without a word, she picked up the yogurt on my tray and dumped it over my head. She stepped back, brushing her hair aside. "So it really was you sticking around him all these years? Do you even deserve him, Anna?" People nearby all turned to stare. The noisy cafeteria suddenly went silent. The next second, I grabbed the tray and flung the whole plate of food at her without hesitation. Did Chloe really think I was still that Anna, the one who, when faced with life or death, always chose or? But the food never landed on her. It caught on Chad's absurdly long eyelashes. Because he had stepped in front of her and blocked it. Chad, who wouldn't even go to hot pot with me because he hated getting splashed. Chad, who practically had the word "clean freak" written across his forehead. He said nothing. Just grabbed my wrist with a complicated expression and led me out of the cafeteria. Only after we reached an empty hallway did he finally let go. "I'm sorry, Anna. I told her I wouldn't break up with you. She was just too angry." I stared at the mess on him, bits of tomato egg, pieces of kung pao chicken. So dirty. I suddenly looked up at him. "Chad, if I break up with you, will she stop being angry?" He froze. "What did you just say?" I said, "Let's break up." "You're too dirty. I don't want you anymore." Maybe Chad thought I'd stay by his side forever. Maybe he thought the breakup would never come from me. He grabbed my hand tightly, coaxing me for the first time. "Anna, please don't make a scene right now, okay? She's only here for the exchange program. After we graduate, we're getting married." I took out my phone and showed him a message. "You promised to spend my birthday with me. Why did you break your word again?" Again. Over and over and over again. He pulled out a tissue and gently wiped the yogurt from my face. Then we'll celebrate tonight. Today isn't my birthday. Then we'll make it up. What's the point? He lowered his gaze, impatience already seeping into his eyes. How was I supposed to tell him? I'd booked that restaurant a month in advance for my birthday. It was nearly impossible to get a reservation. I wasn't doing it to be fancy. It was just. Chad once told me their fried rice tasted like his mother's cooking. But he would never let me finish saying all this. I lifted my head, taking a slow, steady breath. Chad, why did you agree to be with me in the first place? Was it because your pride was shattered by Chloe's parents? So you chose a girl who seemed more on your level? Or because Chloe thought I wasn't good enough? And you used me to provoke her? Or was it that having a girlfriend helped you fend off admirers? So you could focus on school? Quietly improving yourself? Waiting to give Chloe a version of you she'd finally want? He froze. 1 second. 2. 3. My heart felt like something had clamped around it. Tight, dull, suffocating. Was "I like you" really that hard to say? Or had it simply never been part of his reasons? Anna, none of that matters anymore. Why can't you just let the past go? A classic Chad answer. Anything I asked was meaningless to him. Every call, every message I sent. All optional, all ignorable. Tears welled up, and no matter how hard I tried, they finally spilled over. How could I not feel hurt? All those memories I treasured? He didn't even want to acknowledge. He sighed softly, as if exhausted. Stop crying. I haven't finished my paper yet. I don't have time to comfort you right now. The autumn air was cold, leaves scattered across the ground. Chad, let's break up. Chapter 8. For years. Countless times. I'd felt 100 different grievances well up in my chest. Yet every time the words reached my lips, I swallowed them back. The things I hoped for kept falling apart, bit by bit. Until eventually, I stopped wanting them at all. My feelings for Chad didn't fade because he didn't respond. They faded because disappointment, over and over again, slowly drained them dry. Every time he dismissed me, I stepped back a little more. Being with him. Sadness was the majority. Heartbreak was the majority. And still, I never called it quits. I kept thinking I could patch things up, just a little longer. Until today. When I suddenly didn't want it anymore. A relationship this tattered really isn't something worth holding on to. When reason finally takes over, the emotions disappear. Chapter 9. Winter in the city was brutally cold. I sat in the dorm with icy hands and feet. My roommate brought me a steaming cup of milk tea and turned the heater up a few degrees. Anna, can you help me with something? What is it? My cousin just arrived for an exchange program. He's in the law school too. Can you keep an eye on him for me? Another exchange student. And since when had exchange students ever brought me anything good? I opened the photo she sent me, ready to refuse. But the words froze in my throat. No problem. Purely because his face looked even better than Chad's. Satisfied, my roommate dragged me along to meet her cousin for dinner. He stood under a snow-covered tree in a black down jacket, turning toward us with a smile. Jason. 21. Been at the law school for almost 2 weeks. Anna. 22. Surviving in law school for almost 3 years. His eyes curved, shimmering with light. Anna, you're being modest. I heard you're top of the class, Professor Zhang's star student. I paused for a moment. Even he knew more about me than Chad ever did. Chad's impression of me was still stuck in high school. The clueless girl who couldn't solve a math problem. The girl who only got into our university because of good luck and a few bonus points. He never bothered to ask about my grades. Never cared enough to find out. My roommate got called away by her advisor to revise a paper, leaving only Jason and me. I took him to the hot pot place by the campus gate. Steam rolled up from the bubbling broth. Jason dipped his chopsticks into the bowl gracefully, then took a bite. He ate politely, but with obvious enthusiasm. When he noticed me watching, he wiped his mouth, a little embarrassed. Anna, I lived in the UK for years. It's been so long since I had proper hot pot. You like hot pot that much? Of course. It's the best thing in winter. You're not worried you'll smell like food afterward? Or get something splashed on your clothes? Jason laughed casually. The smell goes away. Clothes can be washed. Everything has a solution. He wasn't like Chad. Chad would only tell me not to eat messy street food. 2 years ago, I got food poisoning and my roommate rushed me to the campus clinic for N4. When Chad arrived, he just glanced at me and said, "Well, blame yourself. Who told you to eat from some random stall?" I felt aggrieved and tried to explain that the old woman running the stall had just lost her husband. Her son was paralyzed. And she was raising a little grandson by herself. She needed money. And besides, my roommates were fine. It must have just been me. Chad let out a cold laugh, incredulous. Are you really that naive? How do you know she wasn't lying? I lowered my head, pressing the cotton ball on my hand, and said quietly. Even if she was lying, at least it means her life isn't really that miserable. That's good enough. Chad fell silent for a moment, then scoffed and walked away. Chapter 10. After that day, Jason and I more or less got to know each other. Sometimes when we ran into each other on campus, we'd grab hot pot together. Near finals week, I was walking toward the library with my backpack on, carrying 3 cans of coffee. Heading to the library, Anna? Jason stood on the steps, a faint smile on his face. He was impressive. In just a little over 2 weeks, our professor had already mentioned him in class multiple times. His knowledge, his way of thinking. Everything was far beyond what someone his age should have been capable of. Yeah. I glanced at him nervously. Students like him and Chad, top of the class, always prepared. They usually hated last-minute crammers like me. I worried his next sentence would be a condescending remark. Just like Chad used to do. Jason walked up beside me and took the coffees from my hands. I'll go with you. I frowned slightly, puzzled. But the professor said you already, mastered everything. Anyone who doesn't pull an all-nighter in the library during finals doesn't get to claim they went to college. His eyes sparkled, cleaner and brighter than the snow falling outside. On our way back to the dorms, Jason walked with me the entire route. The world felt quiet, just the soft patter of snow and the crunch of our footsteps. He tilted the umbrella toward my side so almost all of it covered me. Anna, he asked softly, why did you choose law? Chapter 11. Why did I choose law? Someone had asked me that before. Chad was there at the time. He didn't even lift his head and answered for me, as if it were obvious. With her kind of brain? She can't handle science or engineering. What else could she study besides law? In Chad's eyes, I was always stupid. I'd thought he was just uninterested. But he had judged me long before I ever realized. Anna. Jason looked over when I didn't answer, concern in his voice. Are you okay? I shook my head and explained. Back then, I just wanted to help someone get justice. During our second year of high school, Chad's father had an accident while working at a construction site. Because of the contract terms, no lawyer was willing to take the case. Chad visibly fell apart during that time. And I thought, someone like him, someone so beautiful and bright. He shouldn't have to suffer alone, not without someone who could fight for him. After the college entrance exam, I convinced my mom and chose law without hesitation. But now, that decision feels like a joke. I hadn't even finished walking this path. Yet it already felt meaningless. How is it a joke? Jason stopped with me. You're not meant to help just one person get justice. There are so many people out there waiting for someone like you. I froze in place. He was right. This choice had meaning. Even if Chad was no longer part of it. Chapter 12. I thought Chad wouldn't come looking for me again. And even if he did, it would only be to break up with me properly. Someone as proud as him, how could he allow a breakup to be initiated by me? But instead, the first thing he said was that he wanted to get back together. He wanted to make up for my missed birthday. I frowned at him. Birthday? My next birthday is almost here. You think you can still make up for it? Chad, I'm not going back. He panicked, tightening his grip on my hand, repeating my name over and over. Anna, I don't want to break up. Anna. Chloe and I are done, I swear. Please believe me. I shouldn't have gone to her on your birthday. It won't happen again. I like you. I really do. The truth was, I had never heard Chad say he liked me. Not once. It was something I used to dream of. Something I thought I might never hear. And now, it was finally happening. At the exact moment I found him most repulsive. So what is it this time, Chad? Last time, you came to me because Chloe went abroad. What's the reason now? Another misunderstanding? Should I explain things to her for you? You two should stop using me as your buffer. Chad didn't answer. His eyes were bloodshot from exhaustion. I walked straight past him and out of the building. Anna. He followed behind me, but I didn't turn around. It had started raining again. Chad never carried an umbrella. Because he knew I always brought one for him. A bike rushed past, splashing filthy water onto his pants and shoes. Chad walked behind me, soaked and miserable. He probably felt sorry for himself. Why wasn't I forgiving him even now? But trailing behind him like this. I had done it for 6 years. 6 whole years. And not once did he ever look back at me. Chapter 13. The rain kept pouring harder. At the end of the road stood Chloe, completely drenched. She stared straight in Chad's direction, her face pale and devastated, swaying like she could collapse any moment. So, this is how you make me regret everything? Chloe let out a cold laugh and lifted her phone. I was afraid something my parents said might have hurt you. I called you all night, worried sick about you. But you blocked me. Even someone as slow as I was understood exactly what she meant. Chad pressed his lips together, returning to his usual calm. Even colder than before. Chloe, how many times do I have to say it? We're not right for each other. After a long silence, Chloe lifted a trembling hand and pointed at me. Her voice broke. We're not right, fine. Then what about her? What is she? Is that really the best you can do? What gives her the right to stand next to you? Rain ran down Chad's eyebrows and along the sharp lines of his face. His gaze landed softly on me. She's the one I've chosen. We will have a future. The moment he said it, Chloe laughed. The same laugh she used to give me in high school, when she watched me fail to solve a math problem. Mocking, dismissive. A future? Chad, let me ask you one last thing. If my parents had never stood in the way between her and me, who would you have chosen? He froze for a split second, lowered his eyes, and reached a hand toward me. Anna, let's go. Answering the wrong question was an answer. I let out a cold laugh and slapped his hand away. Get lost. Chapter 14. After that day, I never saw Chad again. I heard he and Chloe cried in the rain and finally kissed. The campus gossip page was flooded with photos of them hugging. I calmly set my phone aside and went back to the discussion. The National Debate Championship was about to begin, and it was my first time joining. Your grades are excellent. In class, your logic and expression are outstanding. But you're nearly a senior and have never participated in a major debate competition, don't you think that's a waste? When the professor recruited me, there was clear dissatisfaction in his tone. I lowered my head and promised him I wouldn't disappoint him this time. And more importantly, I didn't want to disappoint myself again. Once the roster was announced, the law school didn't say much. But other departments did. Asterisk, is the law school out of people? Letting Anna compete? I speak faster than she does. Asterisk. Of course it was Chloe, she never posted anonymously. Someone quickly replied. Asterisk, a classmate, you should probably relearn what a debate is. Speaking fast without thinking isn't a skill. Asterisk. That reply gained more likes than Chloe's original post. Time was tight, I had no energy for these pointless arguments. Once the starting lineup was confirmed, our team practiced together almost every day. In the first round draw, our luck was terrible. We were matched with last year's semi-finalists. Everyone thought we were doomed. Posts predicting our immediate elimination popped up instantly. Especially those targeted at me. But luckily, we won by a narrow margin and advanced. And Jason deserved most of the credit. During this time, he used his study methods to give me new debate approaches and angles. Exactly what filled my weaknesses. At the celebration dinner, we ran into Chad and Chloe at the Hot Pot restaurant. Chapter 15. During countless sleepless nights, I used to wonder whether Chad actually liked me. But I never really needed to question it. Love and indifference are painfully obvious. He didn't hate Hot Pot. He just hated eating Hot Pot with me. I walked past the two of them without a word. Chloe already looked annoyed, and her expression grew even darker the moment she saw me. Chad pressed his lips together and called out as we brushed shoulders. Anna, congratulations. I didn't know you. Chloe swayed slightly, almost instinctively glancing at Chad. I replied calmly, there are plenty of things you don't know. Chad's breath caught, and he lowered his head, embarrassed. In these 6 years, he never really tried to know me. He relied solely on his own assumptions. Deciding I was a burden, a storm, a frozen river in early spring, a patch of sickly moss. He was so ordinary, yet so confident. He never bothered to read my brightness, nor did he know that spring was still alive inside me. So he thought I was stupid. He thought I should follow behind him forever. But if I stopped liking him, then he was nothing to me. Just like now. That night, after returning to the dorm, I gathered everything related to Chad. The first gift he ever gave me. The fox-ear headband from our first trip to the amusement park. I didn't know back then. I had actually wanted the little turtle more. But the fox was what he pulled from the bag. Because it was Chloe's favorite. Under a sky full of fireworks, Chad had already mistaken me for someone else. The last gift was from last Christmas. We wandered through a holiday market, and I'd liked a pair of keychains. He bought them. One stayed with me. The other, I never once saw it on Chad. There really wasn't much. Barely enough to fill a small paper bag. Where are you? I have something to give you. Lab. Chad replied unusually fast. I scrolled up through our chat history. Most of the messages were just me. Talking to myself. Chapter 16. The next afternoon, one of my teammates burst into the meeting room, out of breath. You guys, you need to check this post. Right now. She placed her phone on the table. It says Anna went into the lab and ruined someone's experiment. The post also appeared on the campus anonymous forum, basically the school's gossip board, despite its name. Every petty incident in the school showed up there. But I never expected that even after breaking up with Chad, my name would keep appearing on it, over and over. My petri dish was tampered with last night. This experiment is important, it supports the data for my paper. The lab cameras happen to be under maintenance. But from the hallway footage, only Anna from the law school passed by. I know it was wrong to tell her she wasn't good at debating. But she shouldn't mess with other people's work. Attached was a photo of me in the hallway. My face caught mid-expression, looking downright hostile. Honestly, it did make me look like I had gone there to pick a fight. And after not finding her, destroyed her experiment. Many comments had already appeared beneath the post. Anna. No way. She doesn't seem like she'd do that. Let's wait and see. I just can't believe she'd do something like this. She's the top student in the law school. She's always seemed pretty nice. WOC, I know her. We went to the same high school. She was obsessed with Chad and totally broke up the school's golden couple. You never really know someone. If what they're saying is true, then something's definitely wrong with her. Do you guys have proof or not? For one brief moment, I genuinely wanted to blow up that entire lab. A petri dish? Coming from someone who acts like a single-celled organism herself. And of course, the poster didn't go anonymous. It was Chloe. Chapter 17. Not long after, my counselor called. Anna, come to the office. The tone wasn't good, clearly not a friendly summons. But anything involving an investigation should be handled by the police. I didn't hesitate and dialed the emergency number. When I arrived at the counselor's office, Chloe was standing behind her homeroom teacher, crying pitifully. Chad frowned, his eyes landing on me. I withdrew my gaze and spoke first. Teacher, regarding the matter with the petri dish, I have already reported it to the police. I hope Chloe will provide the authorities with real evidence, instead of relying on an emotionally driven post. Chloe's swollen eyes glared at me fiercely. Chad and I checked the surveillance together. You're the only one who entered the lab. What are you trying to say now? Together with Chad? You think I tampered with her experiment too? I couldn't hold back, the question slipped out. I guess a part of me had always wanted him to stand by me without hesitation. Just once would have been enough. Chad frowned slightly and said quietly, I only believe evidence. I curled my lips into a cold smile. Fine. Whoever makes the claim has the burden of proof. You'd better come up with actual evidence to prove your post is true. Otherwise, I'll sue you for spreading rumors and defamation, which has seriously damaged my reputation. Chloe reacted like I'd stepped on her tail, gritting her teeth. Who doesn't know what kind of person you are? And what kind of person am I? Do you get to define that? Chad's brow tightened, and his expression turned unpleasant. Anna, it's just a small issue. If you didn't do it, you didn't do it. Do you really have to waste public resources? A small issue? Why don't you check how many views and shares Chloe's post already has? It's more than enough for me to file a lawsuit. Chloe staggered back 2 steps, glancing nervously at everyone in the room. I was just too anxious. Other than the hallway footage and the things I left in the lab, Chloe had no evidence tying anything to me. The school clearly never expected me to call the police. They started persuading me instead, insisting this should be handled internally. Handled how? We still don't know who did it. My reputation has already been damaged. So tell me, Chloe, how do you plan to handle it? The atmosphere in the office grew tense. Even the dean of Chloe's department showed up. The situation has been explained to me. You're all classmates, let's have everyone take a step back and call it off. Chad will help Chloe redo her experiment over the next few days. Anna, you should go back and prepare for your competition. Let's not bring this up again. Not bring it up again? What about the days I was being cursed out on that wall? What about all those people saying I brought shame to the school, telling me to drop out, telling every law firm to blacklist me? Did it never occur to Chloe that this kind of public outrage could destroy my entire career? Just when I felt completely cornered, the debate team suddenly squeezed into the office. Jason stood at the front, voice firm and clear. Dean, if we just let this go, then every student who walks into that lab from now on will remember that a law student supposedly sabotaged things there. Do you really think brushing it under the rug is appropriate? Exactly, Dean. Our law school can't afford this reputation. Right now the whole campus thinks the problem came from our department. How can we not get to the bottom of it? This isn't just Anna's issue anymore, it concerns every student in our law school. If it was Anna, then the department should issue the proper disciplinary action. If it wasn't, then we deserve a public apology. Amid all the debate, the police soon arrived. The dean had no choice but to hand the matter over to them. After all, offending the law school students was risky, you couldn't out-argue them, and you certainly couldn't out-yell them. The truth was uncovered quickly, Chloe had staged the entire incident herself. There were no fingerprints of mine on the reagent bottle, only Chloe's. She had planned to use that meaningless hallway footage to ruin my reputation on campus. To make sure I could never hold my head high in front of Chad again. But she never expected even stronger evidence to reveal her self-directed performance. The school's official statement was very tactful. But the two departments whose emotions had been stirred up were anything but tactful. Chloe became a living target, overnight she turned into everyone's favorite object to attack. An exchange student can't be formally punished, but her chances of staying on as a graduate student at this university were basically gone. As for Chad, maybe he always knew I wouldn't do something like that. But he still chose to stand behind Chloe. And that completely killed any thought I had of staying here for graduate school. Chad, you really don't deserve to make me give up a future that should have been mine. Chapter 18. My 3 years of graduate school at a top university passed quickly and were full of growth. I finally became a lawyer, just as I'd hoped, and joined a top-tier law firm I dreamed of for years. 2 years later, when I saw Chad and Chloe again, they had long since faded from my life. I'd heard people say Chad and Chloe eventually did get married, but their relationship worsened day by day. At the only high school reunion I ever attended, Chloe poured red wine over Chad's head in front of everyone. Apparently because Chad asked a few too many questions about how I'd been doing. It turned out that when Chloe had been forced to study overseas back then, she'd already shown signs of mental strain. And after returning, things hadn't improved, her extreme emotions had only intensified. No wonder everything she did during that exchange program was so unlike the confident, cheerful girl I remembered. Chad had merely complimented me once in front of her, and she immediately plotted to ruin me. They were sitting in a conference room. The lawyer originally assigned to their case had an emergency. I was sent to gather the basic information. Divorce proceedings. The moment Chloe saw me, she slammed the table. Get someone else. Not her. I don't want her. I glanced at her and stayed by the doorway, not planning to enter. Attorney Smith is in the hospital. If you insist on waiting for him, then you'll have to wait until he's back. She grabbed her bag and stormed out. When passing me, she slowed her steps, eyes wide with fury. You must be so pleased with yourself now, huh? Anna, don't celebrate too early. What looked like a golden couple from the outside had become a resentful pair. Since the clients had walked out, I could leave as well. I turned to go. Then Chad suddenly spoke. Anna, wait. These years, have you been doing well? I saw no reason to hide it, happiness should be shared. I've been doing very well. Chad's smile froze, and he spoke slowly. I keep thinking about why I ever let you go. You were always so good. I couldn't help interrupting him. Chad, I know what I am. You don't have to tell me. His feelings mean nothing to me now. Chad's eyes reddened for no reason. If you have time, maybe we could grab a meal? I remember you really liked hot pot. No time. $2,000 for 30 minutes, Chad. You can't afford me anymore. Chapter 19. I quickly forgot about the whole thing and went back to my routine between court, the law firm, and home. During that time, I received a text message from an unfamiliar number. Anna, stop provoking Chloe. Her mental state isn't good right now. I frowned slightly. Chad's mental state didn't seem all that good either. Find time to get your own brain checked. Seriously. The day Jason and I walked out of court, ready to celebrate our victory, it happened. Just as we were getting into the car, Chloe suddenly rushed toward me with a knife in hand. I scrambled into the car and tried to close the door, when someone suddenly blocked the doorway with their body. It was Chad. The door hadn't closed yet. And the knife landed on Chad instead of me. Jason froze for a moment, then quickly called emergency services. By the time Chad woke up, it was already nighttime. He saw me standing by the bed and tried to force out a pale smile. "Anna, thank goodness you're okay." I sighed. "Chad, you really need to get your head checked." Chad froze for a second, then tried to smile again. "I just wanted to protect you." "I'm fine, really. Don't worry." By the time he was fully awake, I had already run out of patience. It was obvious who Chloe had intended to hurt. And besides, Chad only suffered some superficial wounds, clearly Chloe still loved him. I picked up my bag and gave him a polite, professional smile. "Chloe's family will cover your compensation. I've already arranged for a caretaker for you, along with the emotional distress you caused me by dragging me into this. Rest well. I'm leaving." Chad struggled to sit up. "Anna, I saved you, and you won't even stay with me for a few days?" I looked at him coldly. "Chad, I never asked you to save me. If not for you blocking the door, Jason and I would have just driven off. You don't need me to explain how stupid that was, right?" He seemed to recall what happened, then let out a bitter laugh and pulled out a keychain from his wallet. The one I had never seen him use before. "Anna, I know you blame me. And you should. But I regret everything now. I've kept this keychain with me all this time." "Oh? Even when you married Chloe? When you kissed her? Slept with her?" He looked so moved by his own words, I almost laughed. "If you kept it through all that, then it's even more disgusting. How big is your ego, exactly?" With that, I turned and walked out without looking back. Behind me came a choked voice. "So you still won't forgive me?" I considerately closed the hospital room door for him. "There's nothing left between us. Forgiveness had nothing to do with it." Chad sounded like he was crying. But what was he crying for? He was just unwilling to accept reality. Back then, Chad thought Chloe was the perfect girl. Someone like me, always looking out for him, never counted in his eyes. Only after I was gone did he realize Chloe wasn't as wonderful as he believed. And he had already grown used to being loved by me. Once certain things disappeared from his life, of course he felt uncomfortable. So now he suddenly noticed how good I was. Especially now that Chloe had become someone he despised, while I happened to be glowing a little. Chad convinced himself he had always liked me, that he'd never let me go, he was just unaware of it. He was even lying to himself now. Maybe that glow. I had always had it. He just never bothered to look. Chapter 20. I never visited Chad again. Sometimes he would send me messages, pouring out how lonely and difficult his life was. I didn't bother replying. I simply arranged another caretaker for him. On the day Chad was discharged, it happened to be the same day Jason and I were leaving the country on a work assignment. He stood silently at the entrance of the law firm, holding an umbrella. When he saw me come out, he smiled. "It's going to rain today, so I came to bring you an umbrella. You spent 6 years on me, and I never cherished it. Let me spend the next 6 years chasing you, okay? In 6 years, I could have had 2 kids already." I frowned. "Do you really have this much free time? Can't you do something meaningful?" He should have been very familiar with this kind of rebuttal. "Why do you need me to go with you? Can't you eat alone? Why must a birthday be celebrated on the exact day? Cramming last minute, what, you didn't study properly before?" He froze where he stood. Maybe he was also remembering the past. But the past is just that, the past. So, there's really no chance for us anymore? It's best if there's not even a chance for us to run into each other. The plane rolled down the runway and slowly ascended to its cruising altitude. I had to admit, Chad once was the harmony to my melody, accompanying me through a beautiful youth. But now, I could no longer hear the echoes of those long-gone years. When fate shifts even a few centimeters off course, the ending we once imagined becomes impossible to reach. The world is noisy and turbulent, everyone carries their own victories and scars. Under a cloudless sky, that is where human freedom truly lies.